you have two things that are still up in the air and may cause a need to change the positioning of some of the buildings. Or Ryan Park. The first is the dry egress question. That still has not been resolved. It is still slated to go through part of Ryan Park. It's on the books as a concept. Concept legally means that you can make some changes. I'm fine with that. That means we need to talk and find a place to put the dry egress, right? Secondly, the proper due diligence on environmental has not taken place to the degree HUD expects. They've done phase one. I'm an expert on phase one. I know that Mr. Ivers put out the request for RFP, which is proper and the right thing you want to do. But sometimes when you do more due diligence by drilling, putting core borings in, you do more work to see where the extent of contamination is, you may find it's just too darn expensive to remove or change it. So you may need to tweak the plan again to move buildings away from hotspots and put parking lots on it. And this is done all the time. No matter what, again, the staff tells you, I'm an expert on part of this, and it's true that it has not been done fully yet. Again, I'm not worried about it not being done fully. I'm just saying you have two things on the table which may, through the normal course of business, cause some changes. Lastly, my read of the choice neighborhood, the HUD choice neighborhood, is that you are not supposed to be warehousing people. The whole point is to scatter people within the neighborhood. So, pointing to that wonderful map behind Timothy and Mr. Law, where you see the red line around it, there are alternatives that are shovel-ready and user-friendly and city-owned, available as I speak, as we speak. Now, Webster Street lot, oddly, was early on in the process taken out of the red line. I don't know why, and maybe I'll do some research on why that happened. That would have been a perfect spot for one of the buildings. The Sono train station, one of the buildings. I'm just suggesting we possibly take buildings out of the footprint of Washington Village, which is phase 2, and see if we could put those buildings elsewhere within the red line, including possibly Ryan Park, and tweaking it. So you have a nice corridor from Washington, Water Street, all the way up to the back of Sono CC. So we have a lot more in common than we do apart. It's just that nobody, and people that we pay good money to advise us on a balanced approach, has been willing to talk about the alternatives. Lastly, we were not allowed to talk about alternatives up in Hartford. I'm not sure that was a political move. We're still looking into that as well, and we are all awaiting the hearing officer's view. We want to move forward on this. Why aren't we going to just talk about possible alternatives, compromise, and I'm sure that Friends of Ryan Park and the petitioner will say, let's get going, let's get this shovel in the ground. I know phase 1 could use a little tweaking, but if there's no tweaking, we're still on track. We're not going to lose the $30 million because that's the latest fear-mongering I've been hearing about. We're going to lose the $30 million. HUD allows for amendments and tweaking. They just do. They do, they do, they do. 3 times I'm going to say it. And I'm just suggesting we come together as adults and reasonable people and talk about some possible alternatives. If each of those alternatives, both have pros and cons, are put on the table, just put on the table and discussed, and it said, no, we can't do it. That's it. That's the end of it. But no one is willing to talk alternatives, Chairman Ramirez. No one. And lastly, in due respect to the mayor, I was concerned when he did not contact either Friends of Ryan Park or myself just to say, hey, what are those alternatives? Let me see them. And we still hope that he will look at those alternatives. We think we have some good ideas that will save this group, our city, state, and federal millions of dollars. When you put buildings closer to the dry areas, even still within the floodplain, like up towards the back of the western side of Ryan Park, you have a shorter dry egress, which means less money rising the buildings up and the roads. And we want to save you all millions of dollars on the federal, state, and local level that are being spent on this project. I think taxpayers and the people, the good people of Washington Village, deserve to be pulled as far away from the floodplain as reasonably possible, and there are alternatives that include phase one, pretty much keeping it where it is, then there's no delay. So please be disabused of the fact that Friends of Ryan Park and myself and others, the up to 200 petitioners, want to delay this project. We want this project. We're just so saddened that certain people have dug their heels in and refused to talk alternatives. So I thank you for your time. I'm here just tonight being disappointed when I came away thinking, great, we're going to have just a discussion about alternatives. And then we waited for 3 weeks, no movement. Then the mayor made his declaration about Ryan Park only. He talked about Ryan Park. Some of the alternatives have nothing to do with Ryan Park, quite frankly. So we're hoping we could talk with him again. We're going to go to him and ask him to take a look at our map, our model. And Mr. Law then told me that the commissioners have been told there's not going to be a meeting. So I'm coming here just to ask, can we please still have a meeting of our friends?
I have no other comment but to say that the changing of the site that we've spent years in actually getting public comment on and developing and putting forward a credible plan and a highly competitive application to provide and ultimately get awarded that application. To change the location of this project at this point is significantly more than what Ms. Lauricella comments as a tweak.
Nick, just a point of information. This is also a misnomer. We're not suggesting the whole project be moved. I keep hearing quotes about we need 6 acres. We're talking about some of the buildings that would have been in the Washington Village old footprint be moved around the area, including the possibility of adding some units to Building B, which is in Phase 1, and possibly Building A. Building C might move to the Sono train station, maybe a building in Webster Street lots. You'll still get the same amount of units, probably more jobs because you'll have it all within the neighborhood. Building E could go along Raymond Street.
There's no feasibility analysis that's done with that. There's no cost estimating that's associated with it. There's no understanding of the development requirements for any of the alternatives that were just raised.
Phase 2 is just a drawing. Phase 2 is a drawing, mostly. So I look forward to, again...
Ma'am, we appreciate it very much of your time.